welcome back to your C# programming course. In this lesson, we're going to be learning some number data types and math functions. Now, there are several number data types that we can work with, and I'll be going over quite a few in this lesson. Although throughout this course, we'll mainly be falling back on two different data types, and I will be going over those in a moment. First, let's talk about some whole number data types. There are four in particular that we can work with. The first whole number data type is the byte data type, which has a range of 0 to 255, inclusive of those numbers. Next, we have the short data type, which has over -32,000 to 32,000 as its range. And the most common one we'll be working with is int, short for integer, which has a range of -2.1 billion to +2.1 billion. Now, this is a ridiculous range to work with, and this is why int is the most common one to work with, as you may be encountering numbers far larger than the number values that short can provide, but int will provide those values for us. And if we want to go even further than that, we can use long. Now, as long as the numbers that you're working with fit the ranges of these data types, you can create a variable using any of them and your program will work as long as those ranges are not exceeded. And these are only the whole number data types that we're going to be working with. We also have decimal types. For example, 5.6 or -12.8. But these are only a whole number data types. What about decimal numbers, such as 5.8 or -12.7? Well, we make use of the double data type. When we want to be more precise with your values, we would use a double, especially if you're taking into account mathematical functions that will require precise numbers, such as taking the value of pi and giving it to a variable so we can use it in our program. We'll mainly be using double and integer throughout this course, but if we wanted to be more precise, we'll also include long. We most likely won't be using byte or short, as whether we use an integer for fitting these ranges rather than a short or byte, it won't make any difference to our program at all. That being said, we can create our variables the same way we created the text variables in the previous lesson, such as int, num_int, and this time we give it a value of, let's say, 50. Note, nothing is encapsulating this number. Numbers can be left on their own, whereas text must be encapsulated in quotation marks or double quotation marks. And just like before, we can make these variables constant. With that said, those are some number data types. Now we can work with some functions. So I'm going to create an output line here. In the previous lesson, we learned that you can add text onto other text and it would read much like a sentence by using the additional operator. However, when it comes to working with number data types, you'll find that if we make use of our mathematical functions, like so, they work with each other and add to each other. So if we add 50, you notice that the double value has increased by 50. So let's try 25.5 and go over the next mathematical operators. So we've done addition. We can also do subtraction with the subtraction symbol, as you can see here. We can do division with a /. You'll notice it returns a double. And we can do multiplication with an asterisk, Shift-8 on your keyboard. Run our program, and it is multiplied. With that in mind, you'll also note that our program follows basic math order as well. So let's adjust some values here so you can see that, and run the program. It prints 248. This is because multiplication comes before subtraction. But if I would put minus here, and times here, and run our program, it prints 40. So the program follows basic math order. Next, I want to show you what happens when we use division and clashing different data types with each other. So for example, if I was to take this num_int and I was to divide it by 3. When I run the program, you notice it prints a whole number instead of a double. This is because if a double is not involved in this math function, then it will always output what is the basic value, which is an integer value here, a whole number value. So it'll divide 50 by 3 and output 16. But if we were to make num_int a double instead of an integer and run our program, you see it prints out a decimal value, like so. So if you want to be more precise with the values in your program, you'll be using double more than integer. Of course, it doesn't hurt to use integers where necessary, and in some cases, it may be perfectly apt to use an integer over a double. With that said, this lesson has come to an end. Be sure to complete the exercise for this section before moving on in the course. In the next video, I'll introduce you to one more data type, and also show you how to convert one data type into another. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.